Thursday at lunch in Jose Maria Chatumo. Jesus, how many red lanyards have you promoted? Gloria asked in Spanish, then shared in English. Brad asked a question in Spanish. When you asked, have you been promoted? That seems to be different than when I have heard other questions. There are some shortcuts in our language? Maria smiled. Gloria left out the you. It was implied. Do not concern yourself, it will come to you. Si, senora, Brad answered, then looked at Jesus. He had a big smile on his face as he and his friends worked to learn his language. We have 1,129 red lanyards, including 5 in this family. Jesus did his best to say in English while he was laughing. Jesus looked to his baby brother Junior. Junior loved the energy, and as their mom moved about, he would laugh so much that everyone around him would laugh too. Your family has done the impossible. Brad had been coached by the other 3. Your entire town has also accomplished much, and I believe it is nothing short of a miracle. We will remember this time here forever. Gloria started clapping. Willa and Tony joined in as they smiled in agreement with Brad's statement. Bang! A shot was fired in the square. Pancho looked to Maria. Stay here, protect the girls and Junior. We will be back, promise. Lorenzo stood in the square away from all others. The leader of the riders made for him. Pancho had Tony and Brad on either side of him. Willa and Gloria were next to their husbands. Jesus was next to Willa, and his brother Diego was next to Gloria. That is the man that killed Lorenzo's father long ago, Pancho shared. There were hundreds of citizens lining the edge of the square. Tony looked at the show of lanyards. These were proud people. They had drawn a line in the sand. These riders were dead men by their hand as soon as they mounted their horses many miles away. One of the riders pulled his gun and fired at Lorenzo. The round was returned to the man's chest. Others also pulled their weapons, shooting into the crowd with the same results. In a minute and a half, the 32 men were laying on the ground. Diego, go tell your mother everybody is okay. I'm here, Pancho. Maria was standing about 10 feet away. Did we do that? Pancho moved to his wife. The two hugged. We did that. Pancho whispered in Maria's ear. Then we can win this war, Maria whispered in Pancho's ear. Yes, we can without losing anybody. Pancho shared. Pancho pulled Maria over so he was where he could be seen. Citizens of Jose Maria Chatumo, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. The crowd joined in with the third round. Lorenzo had gathered his pony crew and was pulling the rifles and saddlebags off each horse. Within minutes, the horses had been led away. Pancho asked for volunteers, and with 20 others along with his sons, they took the dead men to God. As others had found, they were sidetracked to the west side of the sun. They stood and watched as the 32 riders went into the sun. Pancho took his 20 or so volunteers to God. They kneeled and prayed for the souls of the men. Pancho said hi to Gaia and Jerry. They then thanked God, said goodbyes, and returned to the town square. When they got there, they found the excitement level sky high. People were transporting groups of up to 20 all over the square. Pancho realized he had just transported 23 live boys and men, along with 32 dead men. He nodded his head and turned to see Brad with a black lanyard in his hand. His wife and family were all there. I have much to learn, Pancho shared. A yell went up. A familiar couple with 100 Minutemen and women had just transported into the town square. After things settled, there was a loud shout. Is there a promotion? John Taylor asked in Spanish. Brad and Gloria stepped forward. Brad speaking in English, with Gloria translating in Spanish. Mr. President, we would like to promote Mr. Pancho Batista to the black lanyard. As John placed the black lanyard around Pancho's neck, we all have much to learn. This is just one more step. I look forward to the day when you and your family can come visit with me and my family. Thank you, St. John, Pancho screamed as John held up his hand to the roar of the crowd. John bent to speak into Pancho's ear. Dear friend, I don't feel qualified to be a saint. I think one of the requirements is I would need to be dead. Both men laughed as the excitement and yelling were continuing around them. Maria, come to join us. John motioned for Pancho's wife to join them. These are my friends, and someday I would like you and your wife to join them in the Senate of the new United States. John introduced Jim and Rose Canton, Ben and Jean Stanton, and Dr. Robert and Kathy Paulson to Pancho and Maria Batista. A few minutes before, Jesus and his brother approached the Minutemen and women. Jesus liked the dress of the 100. Black shoes, black pants, a black belt with a big gold buckle, a black shirt, and a black cap that read U.S. Marshal. Jesus also noticed the black lanyard with a 7-pointed star for a pendant. "I want to be one of you." Jesus asked the man standing there, "How do I do that?" "I'm Jesus Bautista, and this is my brother Diego," Jesus shared. "How close are you to your black lanyard?" Pete Mauson asked, looking at the 2 red lanyards on the brothers' necks. "We both have moved 20. My baseball team and my brother and a few others have all completed moving 20 across this town square." Jesus shared, "Start your group. Talk to Tony and Brad. They will put you in touch with Peter." Pete and Jesus had been using words from both English and Spanish. Pete had decided early on to be a police officer in a big city. He had 2 years of Spanish in high school and another 2 years in college. "Your name, sir?" Jesus asked. "Pete Mason. Ask Tony about the tennis ball and the coffee cup." Pete laughed. "We gotta go. That's the dad who just got a black lanyard." Diego pulled on Jesus' arm. "We are doing this," Pete announced in a loud voice. All around him, 100 individuals of the Minutemen and women agreed. The next day, the people of Jose Maria Chetumal worked hard. And the next day, when another group of riders came into town with 2 jeeps with machine guns mounted on top of each, they had the same result with one exception. One man got hit with one of the machine guns. Many of the 10 rounds that were fired from the machine gun, when reflected, took the head off the gunner. That sparked the 26 riders in the second jeep into action. The battle was over within a handful of seconds. Jesus had the AR-15. He killed the second machine gunner, and when the drivers dismounted their jeeps, drawing their revolvers, they only got 1 round off each. At this battle, there were thousands of more people watching. This was indeed a miracle. 1 round was fired by Jesus, and the result was 30 of the dead riders on the ground unmoving. Lorenzo called for his team to take care of the horses and jeeps. The fruit bins were getting full of rifles, pistols, and ammunition. Pancho, Brad, and Tony had a quick talk. Pancho was concerned about his son regarding how the killing might affect him. He went to his son. "Jesus, can you take us and the dead riders to God?" "Sure, Papa," Jesus answered. Everyone takes a deep breath. In a second, they were on the railing on the west side of the sun. Pancho stood behind his son and wrapped him up in a hug as they watched the riders go toward the sun and explode. "I am very proud of you," Pancho shared. "Thanks, Papa," Jesus responded. "You did good shooting that man. If you had not, he may have hurt 1 or more of our friends and neighbors." Pancho shared. "Those machine guns scared me, Papa," Jesus shared. "Tony, Brad, Gloria, and Willa faced 60 machine guns." Pancho shared. "We have the tools, and now they have been tested. Why did you kill that man?" "I saw our man yell and fall. I looked at the jeep with the machine gun, and that man did not have a head. That is more bothersome than me shooting the second man. I did not want another man's head blown up and another of our friends hurt." Jesus shared. "You are becoming a good man, Jesus." Pancho hugged his son. After the prayer with God, Jesus took them home to the town square. Everybody was there. Gloria had informed the town that Jesus was to receive the black lanyard. Maria got the honors for placing it around Jesus' neck. Afterward, the consensus was, "Let's play baseball." While the young men were off playing baseball, many of the men, including Pancho and Lorenzo, asked Brad and Tony to sit with them. Tony asked, "Gentlemen, could our wives join us?" Everyone had a bucket to sit on. 2 more buckets were brought into the circle. There were hundreds of other men standing around the circle of buckets. Willa and Gloria joined their husbands. Pancho and Lorenzo looked at each other. "Tony and Brad, you tell me there are 30 of you all over Mexico. When we went to see God on Wednesday, there were many tens of thousands of other Mexicans there." Pancho was speaking in Spanish, and Gloria was translating in English. "If we do not rid all of Mexico of these drug lords, like cancer, they will grow back." Pancho looked around. "How do we do this? How do we clean our land of drug lords?" Tony was looking up, getting an earful from Gaia. "Please give me a minute." He started OM or ing. Gloria, Willa, and Brad joined him. There in the center of the circle, Jerry appeared. He looked like a real little boy. Our friends from Omak allow me to be seen by raising the energies with their OM, ing. I am Geraldo Batista, the first son of the first son of the first son of the first son of General Batista of long ago. We want a free country, a true democracy where men and women have a choice of who their leaders are. In 2 weeks, the southern half of Mexico can be free from your actions. In another 2 weeks, the whole county can be free. Out there, you will find much support for the actions you take. I have seen some of the future. It is time for Mexico to rise and tell the world, no more drugs. Pancho and cousin Lorenzo, you two must do this. Ask the men here if they will follow you. Pancho and Lorenzo looked around at the smiling, nodding faces. Everyone agreed. Diego, get my map of Mexico, the big one. Pancho continued to see a lot of smiling faces and nodding of heads. All the men in the inner circle had either blue or red lanyards around their necks. When Diego returned, "Why are you not watching or playing baseball?" Pancho asked. "Jesus and I felt this were going to be important," Diego shared. "Then I named this Operation San Diego." As Pancho unfolded the large National Geographic map, he had one more fold and he realized that he had the southern half on one side and the northern half on the other side. "Diego, if anybody asks why you are called San Diego, you be sure to tell one of us ASAP, okay?" "Yes, Papa." Pancho laid the map on the ground. One of the men in the circle asked, "Who is going with you, Pancho?" "I'm hearing to take 4,000 with me." "Lorenzo, please stay here and protect our homes?" Pancho pleaded with his adopted brother. "Yes, we will be attacked from the west. Gaia has told me to watch out for fires. We will have many guards posted around the town, day and night." Lorenzo answered, "Maybe we could have 2 uniforms, one for the home guard and one for Pancho's forces. Jungle fatigues, shades of tan and brown for those that go off to fight, shades of green for those that stay to protect the homes." Diego looked as if he was focused on something. Pancho looked around to see total agreement in the faces of the men in the circle. A voice in the group, "Who is going to decide?" Tony and the others from Omak looked at each other. It was hard to keep the smiles off their faces. "Let's let God choose who goes and who stays." Pancho suggested more nodding of heads and smiles. When the baseball was over, everyone in town was transported to God. The word had gone through the town to touch God and find out who was going and who was staying to protect the homes. Everyone got a new uniform. The hats had a round brim. The brim could be snapped up, making almost a triangle. They looked sharp. Each person got a backpack with another uniform. The clothes they had on were also in the backpack. The men and women also found 2 t-shirts, 4 pairs of socks and underwear, along with 2 1-liter water bottles, and a quick set of tools to clean any gun. There were also 2 sets of cargo shorts and a heavy-duty set of tennis shoes. On their feet were a nice set of jungle boots. When the 4 from Omak looked at each other, it was apparent Tony and Willa were going with Pancho. Brad and Gloria were staying with Lorenzo. Friday morning, Diego was outside the tent. "Senor Brad, hundreds of the riders come." "Diego, give us a minute." Brad sat up. "Tony, Willa, we have company. We're moving." Tony shared. The 4 all exited their tents strapping on their sidearms. The night before, Willa had them work on shields that were like Papa John's. A round tank shield that protected all sides instead of a flat front covering shield. Tony and Brad did not like the almost total reduction in aiming with the tank shield. Gloria and Willa argued that better safe than sorry. Willa caught on easily. She was able to hold a round shield for over an hour. The other 3 had a hard time. They hoped they had another day. Papa says to transport to the gun boxes. He is making breakfast. My brother and his teammates are bringing in information. There seems to be a lot of them. The man with the camera is back to the church again. Diego shared in Spanish. Gloria repeated in English. The 4 were wearing cargo shorts. They had 4 extra pockets that were each big enough for one 40-round magazine for the M16s. They carried their M16s low, hoping to not alert the riders. Gloria and Willa handed out 2 protein bars to their partners, also giving 2 to Diego. They transported to the gun boxes. "Good morning," Pancho shared. I see you are ready for a little action. Pancho passed out 4 plates with a nice burrito on each. Yes, we are Pancho. We stand with you, our friend. Tony shared, thank you for the burrito. One of Jesus's teammates showed up. Senor Pancho, we count 100 men 10 times on the road. Thank you, Pancho shared. The young man disappeared. He had a revolver strapped to his side and had a red lanyard around his neck. What are we looking at? Brad was eating his burrito. 1,000 coming down the road, 100 on the west side of the houses, and maybe another 100 behind the church. Pancho shared quietly. Tony got onto the phone with his dad, John Taylor. Dad, we are about to have a major battle. Can we call in the Minutemen? Tony asked. Tony, what we are hearing is we have to let the Mexicans win this battle. If they do, then they have enough belief in themselves to clean up Mexico. If we do it for them, the problems will simply continue. John was not happy when he shared this. We have the odds in our favor. About 10 to 1. That's a whole lot better than what we had at the bridge. Tony sounded upbeat. Tony, last week I put a black lanyard around the neck of Sally, your sister. A man came in over the weekend before. His foot and lower leg had been run over by a tractor. Jenny and Sally got him back as good as new. Jenny said Sally did most of the work. Stephen and Ben can transport 50 now. They too wear the black lanyards. They are not Minutemen, Tony. John hinted, I see Dimitri there too. Good. We will make it work, Dad. Tony smiled. Tony, can you use some guns? The Minutemen and a Marine battalion at the U.S.-Mexican border took 900 men to God, and they all went into the west side of the sun. The Minutemen put the guns in big fruit boxes just on the U.S. side of the Mexican border. Yeah, Dad. Tony smiled. I'll send you coordinates. After a few seconds. Got them. I'll send a message to get them on the way. John shared, last I heard 900 revolvers and 900 rifles, and lots of ammunition. Love you, Dad. Tony said goodbye. Watch your back, son. John also signed off. Tony sent a text to his fisherman team. Need help and bring your guns. These kids grew up with guns, and most of them were at the annual county fair and the shooting events. Tony stopped for a second, thinking about his 15-year-old sister, Sally. He decided, yes, she deserved to be included. When Tony rejoined Pancho and the others, Jesus was there also. We have 900 revolvers and 900 rifles on the way. We also got another 30 people coming, many with black lanyards. Pancho looked at his son. Spread the word, we are going to have more guns here. We can win this battle. Jesus looked around and smiled, then he was gone. Tony just got a bit of his burrito when the Fisher kids showed up. Tony brought the kids up to speed. Sally looked around and sent Dimitri a text. Tony is in trouble. We are going up against 1,200 with untrained people. Need your help. Sally also sent the coordinates. At the Kremlin in Moscow, Russia. President Putin was working late at the Kremlin. Dimitri was there protecting him. Dimitri showed the president of Russia the text. Tony is like my son as you are. How many do we have with black lanyards in the guard now? 10 of us, sir, Dimitri answered. As the army had men and women trained to the black lanyard, the Kremlin defense got to pick 1 out of each 100. The Russian army was now just over 1,000 with black lanyards. Their temporary duty was to help put Mother Russia back together. It looked like no one would starve this year. Now they were working on keeping everyone warm. Take 5 others with you. All of you are on 5 days of paid leave. Keep me posted, President Putin demanded. Yes, sir. Every day. Dimitri smiled. I understand it is warm there. It's sitting just north of the equator. Go before I change my mind and go with you. President Putin laughed. Dimitri ran. He texted his 9 men to meet at the armory. Who can speak Spanish? 3 raised their hands. And I need shooters, Dimitri smiled. The other 2 choices were easy. They were the second and third best shots in Russia. Dimitri turned to the 4 that were not chosen. You heard the criteria for choosing. I do not think less of you, and if we were going someplace within Russia, some of you would be coming with me. It is your job to keep the president safe. We will be gone for 5 days. Yes, sir. The 4 men saluted and left. Let's take the scoped M16s with 6 full magazines each and 3 additional boxes of 20. 1,140 rounds. If we shoot a single shot on target, that should be enough rounds. Everybody put on body armor. It's going to be hot there, so jungle fatigues are in order. Back at the town square. The guns are here, Pancho, Brad shared. Pancho walked over to the edge of the town square. There were 26 fruit boxes, 10 boxes of rifles, 10 boxes of revolvers and holsters, and 6 boxes of ammunition. Brad and Tony, can we distribute these boxes to every street, ammunition to every other street, and leave one here? Pancho asked, maybe put it behind the trees here? We will get to it, Brad answered as he motioned Willa and Gloria to join them. The boxes were soon disappearing. Papa, there are another 400 men riding horses coming this way, Jesus shared. Pancho thought for a second. Good, we don't have to go find them. Pancho thought for a second. When this starts, have your team of 300 scouts to go west through the houses. Take your time, clean our houses well, leave 100 there to protect our backside, then go south and come around and clean out that church. As you go, leave your men to build a barrier around us. Put 20 or 30 up on top of the church to shoot down into the square. If any are wounded, bring them here. Be careful, son. Watch out for Diego. I will Papa, the senior boys are in the forest, and will close the west road once all of the riders are in the square. Jesus shared. How many senior boys are there? Pancho asked. There are over 200 boys, Papa. Jesus answered. There are some girls there too. One of the senior boys appeared. Mr. Bautista, more riders are coming. Hundreds. Maybe that is why they are waiting, Pancho said aloud. I got to get back. The senior boy was gone. Pancho noticed he also wore a red lanyard. Where do you want me and Teresa, Pancho? Maria asked. Gloria is going to set up an area behind the trees for healing our injured. Tony's fisherman is going to protect this area. Help her, learn all you can. Pancho hugged his wife. Where are the boys? Maria asked. Jesus is leading an army of 300 through the housing. Diego has another 100 boys and girls at the northwest corner of the housing in the trees. He is watching 100 riders that are over there. Oh, Pancho smiled. Pancho and his boys had gotten up in the middle of the night when one of the sentries reported men making their way quietly to the west side of the housing. Pancho and the boys ran over to the church and got the bell remote. They put new batteries into the remote and verified that the bell control had power. Pancho found the disc he wanted, the Mexican national anthem. He placed it in the bell control. The three slept for 4 more hours, waking at 6:30 a.m. When Pancho saw the riders come into the town square, he pushed the play on the bell control. Nothing happened. He pushed it again. It worked. Pancho knew that anybody on the roof of the church near the bell tower would get hit with an 1.2 decibels of sound or more, enough to have them toss their breakfast. Jesus gathered his teams up. He got to see the entire population of Jose Maria Chetumal open their doors and come out. They were either carrying a gun or they went to the 2 boxes and picked one up. They then turned and moved to the town square. Good idea, friend, Lorenzo screamed over the loudspeakers. The 2 men watched as 2,000 men on horseback came towards them. Pancho looked to his left and right and saw hundreds of neighbors gathering beside him. Soon there were over 1,000 or more neighbors lined up next to him. This is Judgment Day for this town, the man on the horse announced. Pancho started giggling and laughed loudly. You have killed one of my friends and his son. This must stop. If we cannot get an agreement today, then every man, woman, and child in this cesspool of a village is going to die, the man on the horse said. Are you Bautista? Pancho asked. He had learned from God that Harris Bautista was an illegitimate child born of a maid. He had killed his father, brothers, and several other cousins, including Pancho's father. Pancho and Lorenzo were both related to him, but did not want to disclose that. Yes, I'm Harris Bautista, the man shared. Then you are the bastard's son. My claim is far superior to yours. I'm Pancho Bautista, named after General Pancho Bautista, the man that civilized this part of the world. I am the only living son of the firstborn of the firstborn of the firstborn son of General Pancho Bautista. You are an illegitimate child of an unmarried maid. You have until sunset to leave this land, or you will be hunted down like a rabid dog and shot for the crimes committed against this family, this community, and society at large. Pancho screamed. The man turned his horse, so his left was facing Pancho, and with his right hand he pulled and pointed his gun, shooting at Pancho. Pancho's shield blocked and returned the round, hitting the man's heart and both lungs. The firing started behind the houses. Other riders pulled their guns and fired. The battle was on. Gloria and Brad, along with Tony and Willa, were along the south edge of the town square. The four had a good rhythm going and had fired 5 times and had taken out 20 riders. Behind them, an AK-47 fired on full auto. Tony and Brad both collapsed to the ground. Gloria screamed. Willa felt 2 rounds bounce off her shield in the back. She turned, saw the target, and fired. As she turned back, a group of women was dragging Tony and Brad off the field. She fired 34 more times, and her receiver stayed open. "What the hell is wrong with you?" she asked her gun. "You're out of bullets," Dimitri shared. "Some party you got here?" Dimitri looked at the many bodies on the ground. "I've got to go find out about Tony." Willa was turning to move away. "Willa, we need you. Tony is in the hands of his father, John Taylor." Dimitri shared. "Please stay. You are too important. We need you here." Willa went through 2 more magazines in 2.5 minutes. She felt another ding to her shield on the backside. She turned and fired twice. One of Dimitri's men screamed. A round had hit him in the back and he went to his knees. His friend gave him a healing to ease the bruising. The body armor had done its thing to save his life, but had not stopped the hurt. Willa searched and saw a head behind a tree. When the man went to shoot again, Willa shot him. "Did you get him?" Dimitri asked. "Yes," Willa answered. Many more magazines were emptied. Willa had fired all the rounds in Tony's, Brad's, and Gloria's M16s. She had emptied all her magazines. Dimitri handed her a full one. Willa faced the town square again. There were only about 40 still in the saddle. They then made a break for the road and ran into the senior boys and girls. Rounds were whizzing over their heads. "Get down on the ground! Stay flat!" Dimitri screamed. Willa melted. Dimitri crawled over and hugged her. "Tony's okay. His dad is here putting him back together. Your first lady is here too." Dimitri rubbed Willa's back. "I think the shooting is done. Keep your shields up." As they were getting up, "Where did you learn to shoot, Willa?" "There were rattlesnakes where we lived. I had to learn to shoot or stay inside," Willa explained. "You didn't miss any, did you?" Dimitri asked. "Why would I want to miss?" Willa asked. "Willa, I shot 180 rounds and I missed 3 times. Dimitri shared. "I am the best in Russia. You are the best in the world. I was using a scope. You were using open sights." "Oh," Willa shared as she did not believe it. Sally came flying by and jumped into Dimitri's arms. "Are you okay?" "Yes, you have told me that. Are you 16 yet?" Dimitri giggled. "Soon, my Russian love." Sally giggled. From behind Willa came another voice that she knew. "Did I ever tell you?" Tony asked. "I love you?" Willa turned and ran toward Tony. "No, but you can tell me." "I think I would like to hear it." "I'm okay. How did we do?" Dimitri asked Sally as he was holding her. "There was 47 that got hit. God says there were 2,023 of them." Sally shared. "The hurt ones from the village and Tony, Brad, and Gloria are all going to be okay." One of Dimitri's men came up to him. "We fired 1,068 rounds. We have enough rounds to fill 9 magazines." "Do it. We don't know if or when we will get another attack," Dimitri responded. Tony picked up the 3 M16s. They were all empty of rounds. "Dimitri, how many did you guys shoot?" "A little over 1,000. Willa probably got 300 or more by herself." Dimitri and Tony shook hands, then hugged. "Tony, she's the best shot in the world." Everyone stopped as the second batch of riders was transported to the west side of the sun. Pancho came out carrying his little boy with Anna and Teresa walking beside him. Jesus and Diego were working with the horse crew. They were filling up buckets with bullets and boxes with guns. They were also getting some identifications from the unexpected men. Anna had been left with Junior in the house. She had a red lanyard that she wore proudly. During the battle, the door opened and a man pointed a gun at her. The gun fired. Anna's shield stopped and returned the round, and the man died in the doorway of the house. A few minutes later, another man looked in and fired at Anna. He died on top of the other man. When Pancho looked in later, he asked, "Anna, are you okay?" "Yes, Papa. I'm taking care of Junior. He's fine. I got to get my arm fixed." "I'll be back," Pancho informed. "Okay, Papa." Anna was reading one of her new books. Junior was playing with several of his new rattles and bed toys. Gloria and Willa had been manifesting. The atmosphere of the town was a party. The men that ran the big grills started setting them up. Big pots of beans and rice were started. Lorenzo opened the west pasture land for the horses. They now had 2,100 horses. A few had been shot, and those that did the healing did so with the horses. They were told to drink extra water. The horses seemed to understand. John was on his phone walking, holding Jenny's hand. When he got close to Pancho, "Pancho, baby chickens are ready to transport." Pancho jumped up. "I'll show you where to put them. The kids have the pen all ready for them." John, Jenny, and Pancho were followed by many of the children. As they neared the chicken pen, the number of children had grown to over 1,000. One of the children asked, "Are the chickens coming?" "Si," Pancho answered, nodding his head with a big smile. "Pen is right in front of me. It is 60 by 60 feet, almost square. Send 100 first," John suggested. "They are here. Can you hear them chirp?" John asked. "Okay, here they come." There were baby chickens everywhere. The kids were as excited as if it was Christmas. Next to John were 20 50-pound bags of chick feed. "Boys, please move this into the shed," Pancho asked. 20 boys lined up, and the task was done. "We also have cows ready for you," Jenny shared. "Let me call up Lorenzo." Pancho grabbed his phone. "Lorenzo, we have 1,000 chicks." "Yeah, the kids are having a great time. Where do you want the cows?" Pancho listened, then said goodbye, hanging up the phone. "Lorenzo has reserved a field with 50 acres south of the barn for the cows." Maria and the kids, along with Tony, Willa, Brad, and Gloria, joined Jenny and the men walking to the barn. "Do we have cows coming?" Gloria asked. "Yes," Jenny giggled. "Milk cows for our children?" Maria asked while being very emotional. "Maria, we have 40 cows coming. They are producing about 200 to 1,000 gallons of milk a day. We also have 20 or so yearlings and a young bull." Jenny had taken on this project. They were looking at a field that was knee-deep in the grass. "That small river over there." Pancho was pointing to a stream on the south side of the large field. "The other side is the country of Belize." "Are there any roads into Belize from here?" John asked. "If we go west to Campeche, the next state, then south over the mountains through Guatemala. Extremely hard. The quite easy coastal road went down with the earth changes." Pancho shared as they watched the milk cows and young bull arrives. Pancho was laughing as he tried to calm everybody down. "Don't scare our new cows." The group was standing at the fence enjoying the hope for the future. "Your army needs training," John said quietly as they watched the cows. Pancho laughed. "Jesus and his team of 300 probably killed more than my army of 2,000. Pancho still laughed. "My 6-year-old daughter Anna did better than any of my volunteer soldiers." "Can I send you some volunteer trainers?" John asked. Pancho was very emotional. "If we can be comfortable shooting guns, then a battle like today would have been over in seconds. Instead of 47 being hurt, maybe 4 or 7 would have. Yes, Mr. President, send me your trainers. We will fight the battles to make Mexico a paradise again. It is our right and responsibility to do so." "Are you still interested in becoming part of the new U.S.?" John asked. "I am, but I will need to ask the people." Pancho shared, "This is their decision." Jenny and Gloria were talking to Lorenzo about what the cows needed. They had been milked this morning, but would need to be milked this afternoon. John mouthed to Jenny that he was going to talk with the people. She blew him a kiss as they walked towards the town square. One of the big empty fruit boxes was moved. The box was turned upside down, so Pancho could stand on it. Once Pancho got up, "Attention, please," Pancho announced in Spanish. "We have won a major battle. We have had 47 casualties. Tony, Brad, and Gloria were also hit and are part of that number. I was wounded in my arm. Lorenzo in the leg." "We are okay," Pancho screamed. The men cheered. Not only had they won a battle, but they had survived with their new abilities to create shields. The wounded were now walking again. Many had seen Pancho giving orders with his left arm dangling, hanging on by skin and tendons. The socket at the shoulder shattered by a bullet coming at him from the back. His shirt ripped and bloodied. The people of Jose Maria Chetumal walked with a swagger. Their heads were held high. If the drug lords of Mexico could see them now, they would tremble.